Hi, how's everybody doing tonight? We're back with Deep Images,
Great.
and hey,
Doing great.
Bill,
All right.
we got Bill Mulligan, we got Keith Towell, we got CF Roberts, and we have a new addition, Rhiannon Clark. And I'm gonna let her introduce herself to the audience real quick, and then we'll get into what we're.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon from Dublin, Ireland. I'm a rock musician and actress and a polymath. I am interested in many things. Um, yeah, so thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
We're glad to have you. Yes, autodidactic polymath. I've put that on a lot of dating apps.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that pretty much is a category for anybody who's probably on this podcast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tonight we're going to talk. We're going to get into another new series, a brand new one, and I wrote a little introduction here. If I can read it, and I will share it with you guys and the audience. So this is just some thoughts. Crime films. That's what we're going to call this series, or possibly just crime with an exclamation mark. I might do. And what Justin's coming on. So that's a good sign. Hey, Justin.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you, buddy. So I'm about to do an introduction to the crime films. I didn't get it to you in time to read. I'm sorry. But
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. All right.
maybe I should get Rhiannon and start reading them. Just has a nice voice. Okay, so an introduction. So crime films. Yes, this is a great new Deep Images series. So this is a wide, inclusive umbrella under which many films reside. At first, you think of mobsters, gangsters, and hitmen, and those are kind of bulwarks. But it's a lot richer than that. You know, cops and robbers, that pretty much covers, good guys, bad guys on both sides of the law. But any kind of movie that kind of resides in or between those poles, like if it's mainly about a criminal or mainly about a cop or about both, is a good theme for us to cover. So, but it's going to encompass other things too. So like I mentioned, police procedurals, neo noirs, old school noirs, some and some murder mysteries, some drug films, some prison films, all would probably come under this rubric. Um, and then internationally, the Italians have the Poliziotteschi, which is just the whole genre of police films and crime films, and also known as Euro crime because other countries did it too. But Italy kind of was the king, and Italy also did the giallos, and some of those skirt between horror and murder mystery thriller and police procedural, that kind of thing. Um, so yes, and then in Japan, they have a long history of the Yakuza films, which, in my opinion, are some of the best crafted and most interesting crime films ever made. I endlessly intrigued with them. So, and of course, other European and Asian entries. So, what tonight we'll be doing is like covering some classics, some obvious ones maybe. I set some parameters, so I'll let everybody know ahead of time that we're not going to cover any Scorsese, Tarantino, or Coppola. They're just oversaturated everywhere, especially on the internet. And there are classics that we have covered very thoroughly. We've covered Scarface and we've covered Bonnie and Clyde. Justin is our resident Bonnie and Clyde, expert. So, so there's a few you'll be like, why didn't they do that? But yeah, so ones we haven't covered before, but we do have some definite classics and some more obscure ones. So, let's get into it. Bill, do you mind going first?
No, not at all.
Okay,
Sure.
groovy.
So my first film is one of my top 10 films of all time and has, in my opinion, my favorite ending of all time, maybe the greatest ending that's ever been. Just it's going to be hard to talk about without choking up. I love it so much. And it's 1938, so we're going way back, old even for me. Angels with Dirty Faces.
Oh, classic.
Classic. I mean, this cast is killer. James Cagney, probably the best role he ever had. Pat O'Brien. It's got the Dead End kids who later became the Bowery Boys and were part of an inexplicably long-lived and inexplicably popular series of films that I inexplicably love. They're terrible. They're formulaic. I've watched every one of them. I don't know. It's just the most comforting thing in the world. Humphrey Bogart in a small role. Humphrey Bogart usually dominates any film that he's in. In this one, he's very much a secondary character. And Ann Sheridan, George Bancroft. It's directed by Michael Curtis, who was apparently not a very nice guy, but he made Casablanca and a bunch of other movies that, This Is the Army, Yankee Doodle Dandy,
He was part
Jazz
of the
Singer, White Christmas.
yeah.
Just one of the greats.
He was
From
part of
what
the
I hear, he was
German
an
wave
absolute-
too, right?
Yeah, and I know this is going to sound shocking, but unusual for a German. Apparently, he was a real bastard on the set, and nobody really liked him. But you can't argue with success. I mean, he made some
Yeah.
great films.
Right.
And the plot of this is brilliant. Two boys during the Depression tried to rob I want to say a stagecoach, try to rob a train. One of them gets caught. He goes off to reform school and grows up to become James Cagney. The other one who got away grows up to become a priest. They remain friends, even though their paths have very much diverged. At some point, James Cagney takes the fall for a bank robbery on the promise that when he gets out of jail, $100,000, which I'm led to believe is about 1.5 million in today's money, will be waiting for him.
Wow.
He does his time, he gets out, and to no one's surprise, he gets double-crossed by his former friends who would rather kill him than pay him the money that they owe him. But he's Rocky's a little too smart for him, see, and then he manages to steal a ledger, and they're forced to partner with him, even though they hate this guy. At the same time, that's all great all by itself. It'd be a perfectly good gangster film. But at the same time, Pat O'Brien, the priest, has been trying to lead the street urchins, the dead end kids, from ending up like Rocky, ending up, just criminals and wasting their lives. But what chance does a priest, even if he's played by someone as cool as this guy, against James Cagney? I mean, for God's sakes, yeah, Pat O'Brien's awesome. Looks like he could beat half the people in New York to a pulp with one hand tied behind his back. But James frickin' Cagney, I mean, come on. The charisma just oozes off of him, and the kids worship him, absolutely worship him.
Yeah.
So we have this is basically the plot that's going on. We have the priest who's trying to keep these kids from going down the path of their idol. These two men love and respect each other, even though they are working against each other. At some point, Pat O'Brien decides to take on the syndicate with Rocky's blessing, and the mob is out to hit him. It all comes together, and eventually, where was Humphrey Bogart in all this? He's the guy who's like calling the hits against James Cagney.
Oh.
And it's just weird to me. I love Bogey. I've always loved Bogey.
Mm-hmm.
To see him in such a secondary, almost passive role, he is such a second banana in this movie that it's startling. Anyway, he shoots James Cagney shoots the bad guys, also shoots a cop, gets put on trial. The kids are following the trial all along. Whatever
Well, I
he
was
does, they
gonna
just
say that's a mark of a good actor if you can play a secondary character like that and not full focus.
Oh yes, that is absolutely true. I mean, there came a point where that was never going to happen again. Once Bogey became Bogey,
right,
he was never going to get that chance. So it is kind of interesting to see him doing that there and being part of a great movie. The final is Rocky is sentenced to death, and the kids are all like, yeah, he's going to go out like a boss. He's going to spit in their eye. And that's pretty much his plan. Pat O'Brien and James Cagney have a conversation, and he's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm not afraid to die. That part of me got taken out of me. I don't have a soul. Without a soul, you don't have fear. And Pat O'Brien asks him, will you die a coward? Die in a way that the boys who worship you will no longer do that, will see you as a failure, that they will turn away from you. And Cagney's like, what the hell? You're asking me to give up the only thing I have left, my respect. This is all I have, and you're asking me to take it away. And then they do the long walk. Man, this sequence is absolute brilliance. Everything works. The lighting. I doubt the prisons are actually lit the way this prison is lit, because it's just too brilliant and dramatic, but it looks great as he's walking, the shadows and the light passing through him, which if you want to read some metaphor in there, you go right ahead. Max Steiner is playing the music. oh my God, I should be so lucky to die to Max Steiner music, you know? Go out like a boss.
Hell yeah.
And Pat O'Brien keeps asking him, please, Rocky, do this. It's like, no way. And then the ending, he's led away. All we see now is shadows. And at the last minute, Rocky breaks and he goes out like a sniveling coward. And it's actually, I want to say it's hard to watch, but we don't see much. We just see shadows, but we hear him crying and blubbering, ugly crying, pleading for his life. I mean, he's not going out like a coward. He's going out like someone that cowards would say, God damn, man, suck it up. And, just they drag him to the electric chair. They strap him in and he's still screaming for mercy right when they pull the switch and it gets cut off. And then, of course, the priest goes and the boys say, is it true what they say? Did he die that way? And he goes, yep, it's true, kids. Lying through his teeth. Well, here's the thing. We'll never know. We will never know. And people have argued about this ever since the film came out. Did he just break? Did he just put on a really good act? Was it a little bit of both? Did it turn out that, because either way, he said he wasn't going to be afraid because he had no soul. But the fact that he would do this would prove that he does have a soul. So maybe he did feel fear. And it doesn't really take away from him at the end that he felt fear, because the only reason he felt fear is because he was trying to do what was right. For once in his life, as his final act, something that is good, that only one person, well, possibly one person in God, depending on how things work out, would ever know. Oh my God, I saw this as a kid and I was just shocked. First of all, it's a movie where the hero, and he very much is the hero, even though he's not a good person, which is part of the charm
Anti-hero
of the film.
Maybe.
Yeah, he is very much an anti-hero.
Okay.
It's great, and it has a killer last line where the priest, I am not normally a sentimental person, but sometimes when I talk about this, one of these days we're going to talk about Mighty Joe Young, and you are going to edit out all the scenes where I have trouble talking.
I cried the first time I saw that movie.
Yeah.
I didn't expect
the first,
it either.
The second, and if I watch it again, that ending.
Yeah, it's rough.
Actually, probably Mighty Joe Young is my favorite ending, but a close second would be Angels' Dirty Faces. He tells the boys, let's go say a prayer for a little boy who couldn't run as fast as I do. And that's it. That's such a great thing too. The fact that these two men, the path that they went on was completely determined by which one got caught. Had Pat O'Brien got caught, he'd be the one walking to the electric chair, and maybe James Cagney be the one helping the kids. They were not born evil. People are not born evil. Things happen to them, and the decisions they make and the consequences of those decisions can lead them on a path that seems like it was predestined, but it really wasn't. And that's a pretty good message when you think about things. Man, this movie's great. There's nothing bad about this film. 1938, so we're talking what? Almost 90 years?
Yeah.
This is killing me. That films that I don't think of as being 100 years old are probably in my lifetime if I make it. I'm used to, Nosferatu's 100 years old. Well, what the hell? It's silent. It looks like 100 years old. These films, these ones here, and it hurts me that very few of my students have ever heard of James Cagney.
Has it ever been remade? Has anybody ever had the balls to remake it?
Oh, I will go cut those balls off. I mean,
I'm just saying, they do try to remake these things, and it's always horrible. But I'm just curious if it ever had a failed remake or anything.
I don't believe so. I think it's one of those, and I say this, and of course, they're remaking Snow White and doing a piss poor job of it. I mean, it's hard to imagine a different cast. Now, they did remake Casablanca, so what the hell? I mean, or they did a sequel.
I was very angry about the remake of The Wicker Man.
We did a whole show on The Wicker Man, and we excoriated the remake pretty well.
Yeah.
This film feels almost remake proof, because I don't know that setting it at any different time other than 1938 would really work. It's hard to imagine some of these old movies being remade in a time when people have cell phones and stuff. It just doesn't, it just feels of its time. But there's also a classic quality to it.
But it's like I could see where someone might think they could do it and as a period piece, all that. But I feel like it would be too infused with cynicism now if it was made now. I just, I just
yes.
don't think it could ever be as effective because of that.
I understand.
No, Keith, as you're talking, as you're making this argument, I'm thinking to myself, all of a sudden ideas are coming into my head. It's like, okay, so the one guy grows up to be a famous internet influencer, and oh my God, and it's like,
No.
yes, this will happen.
No.
It'll be so loose that I'll be like 30 minutes into it, and when I'm like suddenly clutch the chair, and I'm like, oh my God, this is Angels with Dirty Faces. The sons of bitches did it. I'll be like Charles Heston at the end of Planet of the Apes. I'll be on my knees like, you did it, you bastards, you blew it up.
The only way I would allow it would be maybe if it was the Zucker brothers and it was a comedy.
Now, interestingly, they did make they made a movie called Angels Wash Their Faces with the Dead End Kids, and I think maybe Ann Sheridan, but it was a completely unrelated movie. They're
just cashing in on it.
Yeah, them being in it.
They were just cashing in. There was basically the Snakes on a Train of 1939 or whenever it came out. They were going for the big bucks.
I wanted to ask
everyone in this is great.
I wanted to ask you, Bill, because as you're talking about it, I've only seen it once. It hasn't been many years, but I hadn't had it branded in my memory as much as some of the Cagney ones. But that's an area you're a lot stronger at than me. Bogart, I finally did. I got liked as a kid, and then I finally got seriously into when I was an adult. But what I was going to say is these themes, like of the two guys who are growing up together and this kind of bond, and they go in two different sides of the law, and this runs through a ton of crime films. I mean, I know I could probably name, if I thought about it, I could probably name a bunch of movies in ones. I can name one director though who really used to when he was good, John Woo. John Woo's early movies are all about that. The two people, Wong Kar-wai's early crime movies, where you see the people going in two different directions. It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, you could even though they didn't grow up together, even Heat is kind of a study of these two opposites, but they still kind of like each other, or wish the best for each other, but ultimately can't. But in that case, they have to be antagonists. But the one you're talking about where they diverge their past, but they still have that bond, that's pretty incredible. And I see that in a lot of
it's a great
Asian
trope.
movies.
It's a great trope when you have a brilliant criminal and a brilliant cop. They're two sides of the same coin, and they could switch places. They understand each other. To be a good criminal, you have to understand the law, and to be a good cop, you have to understand the mind of a criminal. And we also see this in the superhero genre, where often, Lex Luthor was Superboy's best friend, and then he turns into his nemesis. Right.
Well, I would also I think we should also highlight I think almost bravery of James Cagney's performance in that, because what he does at the end like that is to even be willing to do that as an actor, I think is pretty bold.
Becomes that vulnerable. Yeah.
I mean, he's got that tough guy persona, and even if you convince yourself that he wasn't, the character wasn't feeling it, the actor was performing it, and he was feeling it when in that moment. I mean, there's no doubt he let himself somehow get in the mindset of somebody who realizes he's about to get killed and he doesn't want to die.
And you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of actors would have taken the actual coward's way out and made it obvious they're putting on a show. And it's not obvious. We don't know. We can't know. It's just so, and it's
I think anybody could crack like that near death.
Yeah. I feel like the character cracks. It's not, but I could be convinced he was doing it, but I mean, it's just so raw that I can't believe that and that's funny to say that because it's an actor who's doing it. It feels that real and raw. And like you said, it just like pulls your heart.
Yeah, Cagney could play interesting characters. White Heat, that's an odd character as well. I mean, here's a character that easily could have been played in a way that would have made him look pathetic. He's a psychopathic mama's boy. And sometimes you're not really sure when you're watching these movies if even the filmmakers or what the intention was, because at the end of White Heat when he's up there, top of the world, man, and then he blows up, and the cops have the last words like, "Yeah, he got to the top of the world, and it blew up in his face." And I don't know. I think maybe they thought the audience was going to be like, "Yeah."
A lot of movies had to do that back then. I mean, they literally had to. Producers tack that on.
Shut up, you miserable! You are not the cool guy in this film. All right.
I know.
I don't even remember the guy's name who was in White Heat, the good guy, the one I'm supposed to be rooting for. Right. I'm rooting for the crazy mama's boy.
I think that's the way a lot of movies of that era went. A lot of the Cagney movies and whatnot. I think they had to follow this edict, I think, passed down by the Hays office, saying that you have to give the message that crime doesn't pay. But the context of the movies do not back that.
Right.
And that was probably the feeling, because a lot of people worship Dillinger. A lot of people thought Bonnie and Clyde were good people. They weren't. They were awful. But who was good back then? You can root for the government.
It's eternal. It's an eternal theme. Mickey and Mallory. That's a movie I love. But
it's survival as well. It's like what people do when they're surviving. In a world.
Yeah. I think they go to extremes, but I think a lot of these people, most of them, maybe the real life ones, grew up in really horrifying circumstances, and the Depression, I'm sure, was no, great thing to live through.
And again, who are you going to root for? The banks?
Yeah.
That hasn't changed in 90 years. The banks are still the villains 90 years later.
Yeah. Of course, the difference back then is if Bonnie and Clyde robbed the bank, then you go to the bank to get your money, and they're like, "I'm sorry, Bonnie and Clyde robbed it." But now, as long as I keep it under 100,000, not a problem.
Right.
I'll get my money back. So.
Right.
I probably should look to see. Is this playing anywhere? Is this streaming anywhere? So let me just Angels with.
I think it's pretty commonly on TCM, isn't it?
It is on TCM. I think that's where I saw it. But it's been a while.
And for once, it's actually an actual classic. TCM has a very loose definition of the C, but this one, I'm doing a it's look at this. Angels with Dirty Faces is not available for streaming
anywhere.
What?
Wow.
I kind of does that. But that's probably on YouTube. There's probably got to be some print on YouTube that somebody threw up there. I really thought I saw it on TCM, but it could be on Plex. A lot of their stuff does not show up in search engines, and then I go on Plex and I'm like, oh my god, this. I mean, they have like really a lot of stuff.
Puzzling.
Well,
Tubi comes up in search engines.
There's a Blu-ray of it for $22. That's not bad.
There you go. Everyone buy that. Watch.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, that's my first film, and I recommend it to anyone with even a modicum of good taste.
I have to do a rewatch. Keith, you've been into this movie for a while too?
No, it's one of those that I've seen maybe once, but I've seen that final scene more than once. And so that's why I know how effective that is because of that. Yeah. And who knows? I might have seen it when I was a little kid. It was a staple on television, reruns back then, late night and Saturdays and Sundays and things like that.
Remember when all movies used to be a staple?
Yeah.
Sunday movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon. That was pretty much what I do.
Camp
out on Channel 8 and watch old movies.
Sundays afternoon.
Honestly,
go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, honestly, for my students, I teach high school around. But the only reason that they know Humphrey Bogart or James Cagney or any of these classic characters is because Bugs Bunny did.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the sad part. A lot of the kids, I'd say a majority of the kids now don't know who Bugs Bunny is. And if you want to know why the world is going to hell in a handbasket, I have just told you they don't know who Bugs Bunny is.
Yeah, I would make an argument. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I was talking to Tim Culver, our executive producer. Oh, by the way, he gives us regards and said he'd get his secretary to send us flowers.
Oh, good.
Nice.
But I haven't seen him yet. So Tim and I were talking about the
flowers. Who died?
Well, no, it's regards because he can't be here for a while.
Okay.
But his ineffable presence though is still lingering, but he and we're infused with it. But he and I were talking about the biggest movie on planet Earth right now, and so we were talking about it, and I said, Deadpool is a trickster, classic trickster character.
He's Bugs Bunny.
He's an arc. He is Bugs Bunny. I made that direct comparison. Yeah. He is an archetype, and
that's a good point.
I don't think Marvel writers have necessarily mined it very well, but Ryan Reynolds really has. Mm-hmm. Ryan Reynolds is a guy who can go, this is what the comics should have been like, because the character had this latent in it all along. I mean, I think Rob Liefeld intended that because the character was a pastiche of another character anyway, and so like Fabian Nicieza wrote him too seriously, and then the more modern writers write him just like too out of control, like, to where it's just like insane, just trying to be offensive and not working because it's just not sharp writing. The thing about Reynolds' brain is, he can ad lib all this shit. And I really admire that about anybody who can do that. And that's one reason the movie got delayed, because he had ad libbed so much of the script that they couldn't use it because of the writer's strike. So they had to stop again. But he got a bigger credit when the movie came out. Now he's like at the top of the writers, but well deserved. If anyone does another movie I'm talking about, shame on you. Have any of you guys seen this Angels with Dirty Faces before you move on?
I have. I've seen it when I was a kid, but I also saw it like about 2 years ago.
Oh.
Very beautiful, but I think that also repeat viewings of movies that are so it's definitely worth a repeat viewing. I think that's what I think. Definitely.
Absolutely. Classic. Chuck, have you seen that film?
I'm familiar with it, but I have not seen it.
Okay.
It's one I have not seen.
I know they outlawed it in Australia, so Justin hasn't seen it. I'm kidding.
I love that you didn't pretend like you saw it. I love
that. What did you say, Rhiannon?
I said I love that you didn't pretend that you saw it. I've seen it.
Yeah, I had a best friend a long time ago, and when I got deep into cinema, he got me into cinema. And then when I got deep into cinema, and he was like the total poser about it. And I would be like, so you've seen El Topo, right? Because I finally saw it. He's like, yeah, man, I saw it a long time ago, man. I'm beyond all that. He had never seen it. He had never even seen a still from it. Okay. I mean, the closest he came was me wearing that black hat. He got to El Topo. But and he would bullshit that way a lot. And most people around here fell for it, and I did for a little while, and then I was like, come on, man. But yeah, so
that's funny.
It's weird. I thought I said ex-best friend.
Sorry.
Hi, you've been watching Deep Images. I'm Henry Covert, your host. This is Briggy Williams and C.F. Roberts, two of our most amazing panelists. And we've been talking about an incredible series here. We do these series sessions every so often. We break them into individual episodes. So we wanted to kind of give you a segue and let you know what you've just watched and what you can look forward to. So just want to remind you, thank you for watching. And please like and subscribe and support the channel any way you can. Do you guys have anything to say?
Yeah, like, subscribe, come back, see us. We don't bite. Type.
Do you like that? We like that. Let me tell you something. Leave some comments.
Hell yeah.
Leave something in the chat. If you like us, talk to us. If you don't like us, talk to us. We want to hear from you.
All right. Y'all have a good evening. Thanks for watching.